Welcome to another episode of the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast with me, Karen Maloney. Joining me on this week's show, I have Angela Montano. Angela is an international spiritual coach and prayer practitioner. Angela began her career as a television reporter, host and producer on local news and PBS in the United States. In the hundreds of news pieces she covered, Angela saw something deeper in the human spirit. A richer story than the ones she reported to her TV audiences, and Angela felt called to explore a deeper spiritual path. Licensed as a spiritual practitioner, Angela has facilitated over 20,000 individual sessions with people from all different faiths and belief systems from around the world. Angela considers prayer to be our greatest technology to access a life of purpose and fulfillment. A best-selling author on dailyohm.com and a featured guest on Hay House Radio, Angela is a sought-after keynote speaker and creator of ReThinkPrayer.com. This was a really interesting conversation with Angela, and I love her background, how she dreamt of being an actress and how her mother's guidance led her to journalism. And through her news reporting days, she could see something much deeper happening through all the trauma and tragedy that she was reporting on. She was pulled to something much, much deeper in the human spirit and called to follow and explore her own spiritual path, which she did and followed without realizing what or how things would open up for her. And it's really interesting to hear about her journey. Angela explains how prayer is an ancient language of love that has been around for thousands and thousands of years, long before religions existed. And it is something that we can all tap into on a daily basis without being attached to any religion or doctrine. And we can build our own prayer practice that serves and helps us to be better versions of ourselves every single day. And Angela shares with us some of the tools that she has created that are available for free in order to help us to build a prayer practice ourselves. And at the end of our conversation, she leads us in a beautiful guided prayer for all of us. So definitely stay tuned for that. Angela, thank you very much for joining me on today's show. You're very welcome.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here.
Oh, and I'm so excited to talk to you today. And you did a lovely little prayer there before we got started, and I'm feeling very centered and present and looking forward to our conversation today. And you work as a spiritual coach, and especially you work a lot with prayer and your website Rethink Prayer, and I'm excited to get stuck into that as well and how you came to that work. But that wasn't always your background. I suppose you used to work as a television reporter and on local news. So maybe if you explain a little bit about that work and maybe what led you then to make the transition.
Well, I was graduating high school here in the U.S. in Virginia, and I was planning on going to college. And out of the blue, I told my mother I wanted to be an actress. And I hadn't done any acting in high school, really, except for a little bit in my drama club. And I think I wanted to be an actress because I at that young age imagined actresses to have a lifestyle where they got to wear the clothes they wanted. They didn't have to go to a regular 9-to-5 job. I don't think it was a very informed desire, if you know what I mean. And my mother guided me to television journalism because she said, you're better being yourself than someone else. And I was always good at doing reports and, doing them before the class. And interestingly, I said to my mom, okay, I'll do that. And so I went to college and I got my broadcast journalism degree. And I went to work straight away after those 4 years to a small ABC affiliate station. And I was a news reporter working, 16 hours a day, chasing ambulances, going to fires and a lot of domestic violence disputes. We followed the police scanner. We were always going where the action news is. In fact, my station called Action News.
Oh, right. So you were definitely chasing the action.
Yeah. And so it was never boring. And it was really, I was engaged in so much variety of human behavior in one given 16-hour period. And it was during those years that I began to sense, and the best way I know how to describe it is a deeper reality going on. A love, even I will call it, that is present. A wholeness that is present no matter what. And I remember this one day in particular, we were the first news station that made it to this domestic violence dispute scene where there was a murder. And the person, I hope this is okay to say, but the person lying on the ground was just freshly released of their body temple. And the person who committed the crime was intoxicated, and the police were dealing with them. And it was what you would call incredibly horrific, right? Yeah. But yet I felt like there's something deeper going on. And on that deeper level, everything's going to be okay. The eternal life of that individual that is making their transition at this time, all that was before the person who committed the crime, as horrible as it all sounded to me as a human being, I felt a presence of mercy and grace that would be with them every step of the way. And even a sense that there is nothing to fear. That if we can drop deeply into, like, all I know how to call it is like it is reality, but at the time I thought of it as like a deeper reality, not surface mind, not what all the news was about, right? All that chasing, but an inner stillness, an inner peace, that if we can surrender into it, there's a wisdom, there's a guidance, and there's a way forward that is miraculous. So I began to feel very split between doing the news, which, like my mother had a feeling about, I actually could do well. I was good at it. And then this deep, deep pull. And eventually that pull to go deeper and really leave my wonderful, wonderful life. It was a hard life to leave because it was so successful in terms of the world. My parents were proud of me, you know, and to really go on a very deep spiritual journey and move into what I call my dark night of the soul, where I experienced a lot of, you know, release and dismantling and deconstruction of my own ego. And it led me to the work I do today.
Wow. That is powerful. And thank you for sharing that story as well. What an incredible insight and deeper feeling that you got. And as well done you for following that deeper kind of pull, as you called it. And
I just want to also just make clear that even as I had all those insights, I do feel each day, for me, I still wake up with that same choice. Do I live at that superficial, surface level, dualistic consciousness where I can love myself or hate myself? I can love you or hate you. I can think something is wrong, or I can live in what's not wrong. I can love what is, love what arises, or I can damn criticize what comes up. I feel every day that's the choice. And I wish I could say, oh yeah, back in 1994, I made that choice and I've been living in bliss ever since. I know I suspect there are people, and there are, who have had that kind of awakening. But I have to wake myself up spiritually to the good news, to the truth of love daily. Yeah. And that's where prayer comes in. You know, how do I choose the awareness that I am held by a love greater than my own thinking? My thinking is not my friend oftentimes, right? When fear is when I'm allowing fear to kind of control my thought process, or I'm gripped by fear, however you want to think about it, my thinking can lead me to places I don't want to go. As the beautiful author Annie Lamott writes, she says, "My mind is like a bad neighborhood. Better not enter into it alone."
Yeah.
For some of us, we know what that's like to have that bad neighborhood in our mind.
Yeah.
It can be our enemy rather than our friend. And many of us are just like little newborn babies learning how to befriend ourselves. And prayer is an extraordinary tool in befriending yourself, in awaking to the friendliness of the universe, in calming the nervous system, in embracing joy and peace and love.
I totally agree. And I love that you said that, even today it is a choice, and it's a daily, like you say, a daily practice within yourself to make that choice and to connect in with your spiritual power in that. Because, we do all have that choice, and we all have a choice of how we view situations and things going on in our life. So I love that you mentioned that as well, that it is a kind of constant. And I assume it does get easier. It is easier to click into that, but it is that constant presence and awareness, with yourself and tuning into that. Conscious decisions that you're making daily.
Yeah, I like that we're talking about this, because many people who might be listening to a show such as yours may be on a spiritual path, and you may be thinking, oh, I should have gotten this by now, or I should be over this by now. And I find it very comforting just to accept that it's a daily walk. Yeah. And while, yes, it gets easier, as you say, there are patches that get harder. Like, you can be going along, dropping into your sense of oneness and union and love, in joy and peace. You can be embracing the friendliness of the universe. And then a challenge will arise. Yeah. And some other level or layer of your egoic structure edging God out, the identity that you've created in your mind, separate and apart from spiritual support. Wherever I believe myself to be separate from universal loving intelligence, that's the identity I created out of fear to survive in this world. And certain things come along in our lives as blessings, although they don't feel like blessings at the time, to trigger that aspect of ourselves that we may relinquish another layer of fear. So, if something in anyone's life gets harder, don't think of that as a failure. You're just at another threshold of awakening, another threshold of release.
Yeah, I love it. Ready for the next level within ourselves to open up and learn through and go through.
Yes.
And grow through as well. Constant growing.
Right.
But then just to dip back quickly before, then once you got this deeper sense of, another level or deeper meanings to what was going on as well, and kind of the human spirit that you were seeing outside of all this tragedy and, trauma, how long did it take you to make the decision to take another path? And then when you decided to work as a spiritual coach, did you know instantly that that's what you wanted to do, or kind of what was pulling you, or what were you doing? Because I often think, sometimes we get scared as well that, well, we know this doesn't feel right, but we don't know exactly what it is. There's too much mystery around what we are meant to do, which again, I think is part and parcel. We have to have that trust and begin to show up. So I'm curious to know for you, was it highly evident, or, did you just decide to leave the reporting job and just see what was showing up, or how did it manifest for you?
Well, there's faith in the light, and that's when you kind of see clearly and you move forward. But many of us have a path where we've had to have faith in the dark. We don't know what's next, but we have to, something in us calls us to say yes anyway. And, what happened for me was I began to reflect upon my desire to be an actress. And I thought, yes, I let my mother guide me to television journalism, but maybe I am to be an actress, because I was thinking maybe this deeper reality I would be able to reflect on the screen. Like I would be able to share the spiritual cravings of humanity through playing characters on film. And I was able to get myself enrolled in a rather amazing workshop that lasted for 2 weeks that became available to me, actually an opportunity that came available to me through my reporting job, which was really a miracle.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, what would think of as a fluke thing, but I did it and I loved the inner work. There's a lot of interesting inner work an actor will do. And based on that 1-2 week thing, I thought I will move to Los Angeles, across the country, and I will become an actress, and this will solve my problem. This will solve me. I never thought in a million years that I would be a spiritual coach. The word coach wasn't there. I don't even think of myself as a coach today. I think of myself kind of as a prayer practitioner, although even after 20,000 sessions and, 25 years in my profession, I almost still don't know what to call myself.
Yeah.
But I moved to Los Angeles and I was courageous. I got an agent. I got this. I had a little advantage because I had already been on television so much. Mm-hmm. But I started acting class and I loved that. But when I went out on auditions to become an actress, I had a teeny tiny bit of success. But mostly I could not breathe life into my acting career. It was as good as dead. And I was incredibly anguished because I'd always been a hard worker, a good student. You work hard and, you achieve some kind of result. Mm-hmm. I was good in my acting class, but translating that to the business, somehow there was a block. And one day my agent dropped me. I wasn't, bringing any money for the agency, so they did the right thing. And I knew what that letter was. It was a thin envelope. I just felt it coming. And I laid it by my bedside. It's like, I do not have the courage to open this letter now. But the next day, it was sunny. And there was this shaft of light that was in my second room. And I took that letter and I sat in that shaft of light. And I did a prayer. And I opened the letter. And as I opened the letter and read that, we've really enjoyed you, blah, 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 but, we're letting you go, I felt this overwhelming through and through in my bones, deep and profound gratitude. Mm-hmm. It's like I saw every time they passed my headshot to someone, in my mind, I saw them putting all my headshots in the trash can because they were going to, represent me anymore. All I felt was gratitude. And then I felt this profound sense of being young. I had just turned 30, and I just thought, 30, washed up actress. I'd make mistakes with my life to make money, and I am a person who, has worked since I was 14. I was doing all kinds of odd jobs. It's just like I thought just totally messed up, and now I'm 3-0. And when I read that letter, I thought about being 30, and I couldn't believe how young I was. It's like I was like, I'm only 30. I'm only 30. I had this awareness of my whole life ahead of me. And during this dark night of the soul, when I couldn't breathe life into my acting career, I began to take these lessons, these classes with Reverend Michael Beckwith of Agape International Spiritual Center. And I did them because I was so lost. So lost. But in the classes, you learn this kind of praying called affirmative prayer. And if you wanted to keep going, and it was a 4-year program, so it was not short, you could get a license to be a spiritual counselor. And I kept taking the classes really just for myself. And though a talent was not recognized within me as an actress, I began to experience being recognized. And it may sound strange, but a talent within me for praying. Like people just gravitated to me to pray. And then when I got my license, I already had people who wanted to work with me. And the first few years was honestly quite scary because like one week I'd have a lot of clients, another week I'd have only 3. The week I'd have a lot, I'd get out my calculator and go, okay. If I do this many people, every week for this many, I'm okay. I'll be able to make it. And then I'd have the low number week. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I'll never make it. It's like,
yeah.
I was not my own best friend through all of that, but I kept coming back to use me, God, use me, God, use me, God, use me, God. I surrender all to my own divine design. However I am designed to be of purpose, of joy, of peace, I let go and let God. And that was like the golden breadcrumbs I followed. And then I had a thriving practice in a few years. When I say 2 years, I'd say thriving within 4, but I was able to make it within 4 months on my own as a practitioner. I lived very frugally, but I had enough to live on, and then it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew.
That's amazing. And I love, again, just how, as you said, you were following the golden breadcrumbs, but again, how they were all, it ties into the bigger picture of, well, I don't believe anyway there's any such thing as coincidence. Yeah. And like that, by being open and I suppose being in that place of feeling a bit lost and, looking for something for yourself to help yourself initially, and then having this whole, I suppose business and practice open up for you is incredible. And, that's obviously you've just explained as well how you came about to working as a prayer practitioner. And I'm excited to get talking about some of your work now as a prayer practitioner. And I suppose even because sometimes the word prayer can kind of invoke a bit of fear in people, I think, or they attach to old ideals of maybe being forced into prayer or church or whatever back in the day. What does prayer mean to you?
Well, I want to say, I get it. The word prayer can be so off-putting to so many people for so many good reasons. And we really need to rebrand, reclaim that word and the energy of prayer for what it is. And it's a universal gift to humanity. Yeah. It is the greatest gift we have. It is our spiritual instinct to reach beyond our current state of suffering. So you have an instinct to breathe, to eat, to sleep. From a spiritual standpoint, you also have the impulse to pray. It is to reach beyond whatever perception is occurring that is resulting in suffering for you, to heal that perception, allowing miracles to result in the inner world and often appearing in the outer world. So it's interesting to note that prayer has existed for centuries before even the first religion was formed. Unfortunately, most people think prayer is a product of religion. Mm-hmm. And while I am not against any religion, and we could also say religion has contributed to prayer, like has contributed, a body of work to prayer. Prayer is beyond, it cannot be put into a religion. Mm. And I think that's why it's so off-putting. One of the questions I get from so many people, but what do I pray to? What do I pray to? Well, I'm spiritual, but not religious. I'm interested in my chakras aligning. I'm interested in, pure positive energy. I'm interested in intentionality. I'm interested in co-creating with the friendly universe, right? I'm interested in being more and more grateful, more and more appreciative, right? But prayer is, what do you pray to? And that's what we have to heal. Like, we don't want to pray from a sense of being separate from our higher power. And whether you call that higher power God, and we all have a higher power, and I believe it's the same higher power. And sometimes I might pray in an awareness that the higher power, the divine loving intelligence of this universe is within me and I'm one with it. And from there, I'm calling forth a deeper, greater alignment with what my higher power is knowing for me. and living as me. Another time I might be so bereft and I might place my higher power sort of outside of me. And I might go, help! Hello, eternal loving presence, HELP. Hello, eternal loving presence. And I need to pray to my higher power as other, because I'm in that place. So there are many faces and ways to connect, to relate, to commune with our higher power. But prayer is always about letting go of suffering and embracing wholeness, always. However we get there. And there are many, many methods.
I love that. That's great. And again, I love that you share that your practice and your prayer changes, depending on where you're at as well and how you're feeling. And again, like you mentioned, I suppose it is that communication is one way to commune with the higher power. Again, whether you have a particular name for it is up to each individual. But yeah, I love that there's the flexibility, there's the openness, there's the the realization that it's something to serve each of us as well. Like you say, it's to help us in letting go of suffering. And I know last year I did, and even, the fact that you mentioned as well in your description, it's about kind of changing our perceptions of prayer. And even, your website is Rethink Prayer. And like you say, it's centuries old. So again, connecting into that and kind of moving away from any stigmas we may have or things around it, because like that, it is so beautiful. And I did your 21-day days of prayer, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful program as well. And I love in one of the days you mentioned, you speak about prayer being an attitude as well. And your description of it was like, or willingness to offer love to whatever experiences disturb us. And I think that's just such a beautiful description as well.
Yes. And, I so appreciate your articulation and your invitation as you reflect on taking the course and reflect on what I'm saying, is that, we relate to ourselves in so many different ways. We must relate to the universe or our higher power, the presence, God, Christ consciousness, the Buddhic mind, Atman presence, love, beauty. Again, so many of us who are spiritual teachers, within this, there's kind of there is a demographic now called spiritual but not religious, or spiritual and religious, but the spiritual leads. And you'll hear many, many teachers say what I said, whatever you call it, whatever you call it. And, just like in aromatherapy, you might use the aromatherapy lavender when you need to relax. You might use the aromatherapy peppermint when you need a little invigoration. When you need different things to help you release your suffering, you get to relate to prayer in different ways. You get to relate to your higher power in different ways. The form of prayer I first learned that really awakened me to the power of prayer, to what Gandhi said when he said prayer from the heart can change what nothing else in the world can. I deeply know this to be true. And I originally, after my years with Michael Beckwith, I learned this kind of prayer called affirmative prayer. And affirmative prayer is basically a 5-step prayer, which is, it's like you acknowledge, God is, or divine universal loving intelligence is. It exists. Mm-hmm. 2, you go, I'm one with it. It's not like far off behind a white cloud somewhere where I can't see, or deep in the earth where I'm not, or over there in those good people and I'm not there. It's right where I am. So you declare it is, I am. And the third thing, you declare it is, God is, love is, where whatever it is that you're upset about. Like, maybe you have a meeting with your boss, or you just broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you're going through a divorce, you're having a difficult time with one of your children, you're concerned about finances. Whatever disturbs you, you begin to speak. We learned it as speak the word. Like love is right there. Love is on the field. Love is at the center and circumference of this. You begin to kind of talk yourself into more is going on than meets the eye. And this problem isn't the be all end all. So you open your consciousness. And after that, you say thank you, or I'm grateful for this realization. You release it to the universe. You let go. And what we found from affirmative prayer is a lot of things, we call them like miracles happened. Like, things just went better and better. Something, this, that, and the other was great. And a lot of people would say, okay, affirmative prayer is the way to pray. But in my many, 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 many sessions with people, I remember working with someone who'd actually studied affirmative prayer, and she was moving through a time of deep darkness, of depression. And she said this to me, I just can't be my own God today. I can't be my own God today. I can't find the better feeling thought. That affirmative prayer can be a little bit, it doesn't have to be, but it can be a little bit rah, motivational.
Yes.
And when you have motivation, what are you supposed to do? Inauthentically prayer. And that's when we need help me. Power within me, power through me, power as me, this power that is loving and intelligence that I can't even imagine right now. Lift me up from the inside out. Amen. And I found that by offering those kinds of prayers to people when they were moving through darkness, that became a float. And they just floated down the river of the darkness into the light, letting the universe do for them what they couldn't do for themselves. So I still love affirmative prayer, but I don't want it to be the only tool in somebody's box. Because then, and I witness this a lot because I've taught a great deal in classes, people all over the world. And then people, if they only know one prayer, they feel like a failure. Well, I guess I prayer, I couldn't be my own God today.
Yeah.
But if you have a lot of different approaches to prayer, then it's like, there's different tools for different situations.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And definitely, even throughout your 21-day program, again, like you say, there's so many different prayers in there around, whether it's forgiveness or gratitude or, for yourself, for others, or dealing, healing perception. And like you mentioned, the affirmative and contemplative, like there's such an array and so beautifully put as well that they're not, again, there's like that flexibility, that openness. And again, like you mentioned there as well, I think that the power of having those different prayers as well is just to being able, like you mentioned, that lady, she just can't be her own God today. It's that, I suppose, ability to be able to settle into ourselves and just be present and accept what is. And it's okay to have a down day or to feel a bit off, and acknowledging that as well. Whereas I think sometimes we can be very hard on ourselves and feel guilty about not feeling on form.
Exactly. And I say this especially for women. There's a great healing that has to happen among womankind to be good to herself, to befriend herself, to love herself, to accept herself, to embrace herself. And, so when we as women in particular are caught up in self-loathing, self-incrimination, self-blame, that's when it's difficult to feel even worthy or even to find a way out of that to then pray, And that's why one of the things I love about prayer we haven't talked about yet is to reach out for prayer from someone else. One of the most extraordinary riches that I enjoy in my life is I have an amazing, I call them, a prayer posse. I have colleagues in prayer that we could text each other anytime, day or night, and we've got each other. I've got your back. I'm lifting you up in prayer.
Brilliant.
And I have that prayer support. I want that for everyone in the world. One of the great intentions back of Rethink Prayer is I would like everyone in the world to have people that can pray for them, because with all the wonderment of spiritual practices, be it yoga, be it meditation, be it journal writing, 3 of which I've benefited greatly from personally. But I can't write in your journal for you, Karen. I can't do it for you. I can't meditate for you. Now, I can do all those for myself, and I might be a better person for you, right? Yeah. But I can't do that work for you, right? But I can pray for you. And I love that about prayer. And in praying for you, I'm praying for the part of me that is you. And I'm feeling more connected to my fellow humans. And this is why in this time in which the world feels so isolated, there's so many bubbles of isolation we have to pierce right now to know that we're one human family. Prayer really is, for me, if not the key, a very, very vital component to our realizing our oneness as a human family, and really get about the business of unconditionally supporting one another in our journeys.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I suppose it comes back again to that whole idea of, I love your prayer posse idea, but it comes back to the idea of community. And as human beings, we need community and connection. And like you say, maybe even women more so, not leaving the men out, but we are that more kind of tactile, nurturing, need that offloading or community sense as well, which then I think in turn spills out and uplifts everyone around them. So it's vitally important to have that. And I love that idea of having that kind of worldwide community and connection. And that's very powerful in what you say, actually. Yeah, you can't write in my journal for me, but the fact that we can actually pray for someone else is really, really powerful and really beautiful.
Yes, and what you say about women needing connection, I mean, it's scientifically proven the hormones that are healthful that we emit when we have connection. Women need women in a very unique way, and we've turned against one another as women when we compete and compare and then go away feeling, well, you're thinner than I am, or your outfit's better, or you're aging better than me, or, oh, you've got more money than me, you married a better husband or wife than me, however I might put myself down. We've really, this must be healed among women, and women are amazing at praying for one another. When we become prayer partners, all that competitive, comparing mind, egoic structure is transcended. And so we not only get the benefit of praying and being prayed for and praying for someone else, we also get, as you were saying, a really healthful connection with another woman. And again, I agree with you. I'm not saying this to leave any man out, but it lifts everyone up. Yeah. And our great prayers too.
Fantastic. It's like, well, I've seen or had the insight or the understanding or the comprehension from this conversation so far that it's like the gateway really that can open up that space again to allow us to reconnect, because as you say, there's so much in kind of individual focus and little pockets popping up here, there and everywhere, and we all know it's not the way. It's not benefiting anyone to kind of hone in and kind of put the blinkers on. It is about the bigger picture and the community and the focus and the connecting in with that higher power within ourselves and on the universal level. So yeah, that's really beautiful as well. So then I suppose for a person who would be wanting to start a prayer practice, or maybe they have one or maybe they don't, and they want to start to build a prayer practice now, what advice would you give to someone? And again, I know everyone's very individual in that, but any good starting points or places that they can tune into themselves in order to start building something that's true for them?
Well, the first thing I would recommend, and I'm going to answer this question from 2 different vantage points. One is I would go to the website www.rethinkprayer.com, And you put your name in and your email address. And for the next 15 days, you receive a 2-minute audio recorded prayer from me. And the reason I recommend that as a place to start is I would love people to begin to just receive prayer. That is, as prayer is intended, to be non-judgmental and uplifting and truly prayer supporting, prayer supportive. So I think a good way is just to let me just be prayed for, let me experience that. Also, I have a live global prayer call. People all over the world come together. It's almost always the first Friday of every month, although this month it's the second Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you experience people asking for prayer, receiving prayer, and that's an incredible way just to have an infusion of prayer that is fresh and vital and will open you to the possibility of what is the prayer field and how do I deliver my fears and doubts and worries, my burdens, my regrets, my resentments to the higher power, to the prayer field. So that is one. Now, let's say you don't want to go online and fiddle-faddle with any of what I'm suggesting to hook up to the Rethink Prayer community. Then I would offer you the suggestion to put both of your hands on your heart and take a deep breath in and just say, and you can repeat after me right now. I'm going to say it twice. So the second time I say it, you can say it with me. And I might begin with something simple like, whatever presence of love that exists, whatever presence of love that exists, help me.
Help me.
Amen.
Amen.
I would just start with something that simple, just opening up to the universal loving intelligence. I mean, it's been said that God is the breath within your breath, closer even than breathing, nearer than hands or feet, So there's so much detoxing we have to do of our concept of prayer, that it's about getting something rather than letting go and letting this higher power guide us from the inside out.
Yes. And thank you as well for sharing the website and your global prayer calls that you have. And I will link them as well to the show notes and that if anyone does want to sign up. But even like you mentioned, if someone doesn't want to be online, that action of just placing your hands in your heart, and even after repeating your words as well, I just feel so grounded again and everything and present. Just for people to do that as well, for us all to do that and start building and connecting and feeling and opening up that space again within ourselves, and trying to, I suppose part of it as well is getting out of the mind and the word, prayer and what you think it may mean or any connotations, just letting it go, just forgetting about it and just opening up that space for that communication.
And this one particular prayer we've been speaking about today, help me, it's a prayer of high self-esteem. Because when I say help me, I'm actually, to speak that prayer, I have to accept I'm worthy of being helped. I deserve help. And it's also a prayer of humility. It's a prayer of, when I say humility, I mean it's a prayer of, I don't have the answer from within my ego-constructed sense of self. That self I've created to survive is looping in on itself, if you will. And I need to enlarge and expand my sense of what is possible. So when we pray, we're always extending and expanding what is possible.
Yes, again, the fact that you say, I deserve help, opening up, saying, help me. We do all deserve that, and it is all available to us. But I suppose it always comes back to as well the idea of we all have free will choice. It's opening it up and asking. I have thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. I honestly can't believe where the time has gone. It has just flown by. And I know you've got, you're just getting started in your day as well, and you're busy. And I will link your website as well, and Rethink Prayer, and, any social media links and that as well. But to close out, if you would like to, maybe close out with a short prayer for us all. And I just take this opportunity again to say thank you so much for joining me today.
I thank you so much, Karen, for having me. Thank you so much. And also, I think another thing that'd be wonderful to link is the Daily Om course you took. That's a really good, and by the way, everything I've suggested is free. The 15 days of prayer, the course with Daily Om, there is a charge, but you really get to pay what you can afford. So nothing I'm suggesting is selling you anything. The Global Life Prayer Call is also free. So these are resources that are available, that are gifts to everyone. So, those three, the things to link, the website, which once you sign on, I will send you a reminder for the Global Life Prayer Call, plus you'll get the 15 days of prayer. And then the Daily Om course is really how to have a prayer practice, how to start that prayer practice. And I think that's a good place to begin. Yeah,
and it's beautiful. So yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I will definitely link all those.
Okay, so what would you like me to put into prayer for us today, Karen? For you and all your listeners, all of us, like what shall I pray? What shall I presence through prayer for all of us?
I think maybe that awareness again to help us connect back to our own true essence, and that higher power that is available to all of us, that is within us, that is source, that is that kind of all powerful divine love that's available. So maybe an intention or something to help us to reconnect back to that.
Beautiful. So if you're somewhere that you can shut your eyes, allow your eyes to close. I like to think of my eyelids as little shades, and I'm just pulling them down. In all the ways I perceive the world, good or bad, I'm just closing that right now. And I'm making a shift. I'm turning within. I'm not turning within to just yakety yak my monkey mind. I'm turning within to a possibility that is beyond my human comprehension. I'm turning within to a grace, to a mercy, to a compassion, to a love that I can't even conceive. And whether I call that which I turn within to the mystery, the universe, God, love, and whether I have any felt sense of it or not, just through my desire to imagine a power greater than my own thinking, that's enough for me to open my heart to a way of thinking and a way of living that is better than what I'm experiencing right now. And as Karen has called us, we're being called right now to attend to the essence of our being, the truth of who we are, not who we take ourselves to be, not who we go out to be to impress someone, not the masks we wear to survive in the world, but to truly connect to our undisturbable essence of love, of life, of joy, of peace. So I'm placing this in prayer. I'm delivering this to what I refer to as the prayer field. I'm letting go and allowing us to be changed by this prayer. That I am, that you are, that we are willing to live in a consciousness of deeper communion, deeper oneness and union, deeper remembrance of our living connection to well-being, to love, to joy, to peace. I want to add in this prayer just connection for all women everywhere who need to feel connection. I pray for prayer support, that somehow, some way, whatever's going on for you, through this prayer I pray right now, you may awaken and open to being supported in prayer. I bless Karen, I bless her work, I bless her podcast. I accept that it is a divine idea in the mind of God, born of love, and that it is made its way into fruition, and I just bless it that it may reach all those whom it is to reach. I bless Karen and her work, me and my work with Rethink Prayer, the Rethink Prayer community, and I bless each and every person listening in their work, in their life, in their love. May they be uplifted, guided, transformed by the presence of forgiveness and grace and love and mercy and compassion, by the true abundance and opulence and wealth of this universe. For this and so much more, I'm grateful and thankful. I release this word. I let go. I let love. And so it is. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much again, Angela. That was beautiful.
You are so welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Also log on to www.karenmaloneyWellbeing.com and click podcasts for the full show notes and links.